Mike, in terms of South Korea, obviously the focus on the threat from North Korea when it comes to the US and what support they will give South Korea.
That's right, Max. You know, South Korea has a lot on the line when we're talking about that tributary of the diplomatic equation right here. So far, we've heard warm messages of congratulations coming from Seoul with an undercurrent of nervousness, but we haven't heard anything from the northern side of the DMZ from Kim Jong Un as of yet. But when we're talking about specifically South Korea and security, you know, we want to talk about the prospect that Trump could demand more from South Korea in terms of payment to have U.S. troops on the Korean Peninsula, and also the prospects of another summit between Kim Jong Un and Trump. So when we're talking about these troop levels, Max, right now there are 28,500 U.S. service members who are scattered throughout South Korea, and South Korea right now pays about $1 billion annually, its share of stationing those troops throughout the country. A couple days ago, Max, in Chicago, Trump said he wants a 900% increase, up to $10 billion, South Korea paying the United States to house those troops throughout South Korea, paying, in Trump's words, South Korea's fair share of this relationship. There was an agreement reached on Monday between Seoul and Washington, D.C. for a much smaller increase, not 900% by any stretch of the imagination, more like 8%, but Trump could conceivably tear up that agreement when he returns to power. Now, in terms of another nuclear summit between Kim Jong Un and President Trump, officials I've been speaking with who could end up in the Trump cabinet say they want to finish that part of history. There is certainly a willingness to get some sort of nuclear deal done. In September, I had the opportunity to speak with Robert O'Brien, who could be the next Secretary of State, and he signaled certainly an openness and willingness from his negotiations with North Korean diplomats in the autumn of 2019. Here's what he told us.
And they took a very hard line publicly after the meetings. But we thought that September meeting, it was September, October, I believe, of 2019, we thought that meeting would lead to something, maybe another summit in the spring. But then unfortunately COVID hit and the whole world changed, and especially in North Korea with the total, unbelievable lockdown in North Korea, and so we lost that opportunity.
So they thought another summit could happen. That is their mission, potentially right now. But Max, the final question, would North Korea even come back to the negotiating table now that they have the backing of Russia, and they're in a much stronger position now than they were when Trump left office, Max?
Okay, Mike, also Stephen, thank you both very much indeed.